Hi, I'm Jess Renke. I am the building manager at the Crest Pavilion. Joined by Janine Brennan, who is our interim branch manager, and then also Dave Laluzerne. So he's here to talk to us about vitamins and minerals. He is an herbalist who I've worked with in an everyday's Earth Day capacity, and he's got a lot of really awesome herb walks, and so he'll share those with you after the program. So go ahead, Dave, take it away.
Hello, everyone. So for 20 years, I owned 3 vitamin and herb shops in Madison. My education was in pharmacy at the University of Wisconsin. I then worked as a pharmacist for 15 years before opening the first Green Earth vitamin and herb shop in 1990. I learned a lot about vitamins and minerals in school and over 35 years of experience. There is a lot of information out in the world about vitamins, but a lot of it is confusing, misleading, or wrong. I've always warned people not to believe everything they read in newspapers and magazines, especially advertising, on the internet, in infomercials on TV, and even in books written by so-called health gurus. I always take a practical approach to vitamin supplementation. In fact, supplement is the key word here. Vitamins are a supplement to a good diet, not the solution to a poor diet. I've always said, oh dear, you are what you eat. So today I want to give you some insights about vitamin and mineral supplements. Let's start with what I consider to be the most important supplement anyone can take, fish oil. So fish oil is a source of omega-3 essential fatty acids. And these are known by EPA and DHA. EPA for eicosapentaenoic acid and DHA for docosahexaenoic acid. I always like to say that because it makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about. The nice thing about fish oil is it also contains good levels of vitamin A, vitamin D, and vitamin E. And as we go along today, I'm going to be talking about several nutrients that may be beneficial in this time of dealing with the COVID virus. And 2 of those are vitamin A and vitamin D. So that's also what's in fish oil, so that makes it a good supplement. Talk about A and D in a little bit. So omega-3 fatty acids have some major health benefits. They help prevent and treat of cardiovascular disease. One of the things they do is they modify cholesterol. They make the nice thing about them is even though you may have high cholesterol levels, the cholesterol doesn't form plaque in your arteries. In fact, some of the initial studies that were done on omega-3 fats were done on Eskimo populations because they have such a fatty diet, yet they have very low levels of heart disease. And they found that one of the benefits of the high-fat diet that they got from the whale meat that they ate primarily was that these fatty acids would modify the cholesterol and prevent it from forming clots, which is the real problem with cholesterol. The omega-3 fatty acids are also important for neurological diseases like depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, and attention deficit disorder, Alzheimer's disease. The fats, these essential fatty acids, are important for the nerve sheaths that coat our nerves to keep them healthy. It's also beneficial in inflammatory diseases like psoriasis and eczema, inflammatory bowel disease, and rheumatoid arthritis. The compounds, the omega-3 fats, are what the compounds that the body uses to make its own natural anti-inflammatory compounds. So some of the signs of insufficient levels of omega-3 include abnormal vision and neurological function, high cholesterol or triglycerides, high blood pressure, abnormal hormonal activity, reduced cell survival, impaired wound healing and cell growth, and dry skin. So signs of deficiency of the essential fatty acids, the EFAs, are excessive thirst, frequent urination, dry skin, and dry hair. So there are a lot of food sources of omega-3 fats. Grass-fed beef is an interesting one. Most of the time when we buy beef, in the store, you're getting beef that's the cattle are fed on feedlots, and the food that they give them, the different grains and et cetera that they give to them aren't the animals aren't able to make omega-3s from them. So in order to get omega-3s from beef, you have to eat grass-fed beef. Other sources are some algae, warm water fish, although they have lower levels than cold water fish. And really, cold water fish are your best source of omega-3 fats. There's anchovy, salmon, herring, mackerel, albacore, tuna, sardines, halibut. All those are really good sources of omega-3 fats. Now, if you want to take a supplement, I suggest taking cod liver oil. I've been taking cod liver oil myself for many, many years. And I take a tablespoon or 3 teaspoonfuls daily. And I think it's really probably the best supplement. If anybody wants to take a supplement, I think this is one of the best. It is more food-like because, as I mentioned, it has the A and the D and the E and other supplements and other nutrients in it. So it's better, I think, than taking the fish oil capsules. And most fish oil capsules have about 1,000 milligrams of oil, and you can get some that are a little bit higher, some a little bit less. And in order to equal the equivalent of 2 to 3 teaspoonfuls daily of cod liver oil, you'd have to eat 6 to 9 capsules of the fish oil capsules. And then you wouldn't get all the other benefits of the cod liver oil. And if you do take any oil, it's always best to take it with protein at a mealtime, because the protein helps assist in the absorption of the fats, of the omega-3 fats. So I always ask the question, have you had your fish oil today? So now let's talk a little bit about vitamins in general. First of all, let's start with a definition of a vitamin. A vitamin is an organic molecule or related set of molecules that is an essential micronutrient which a body needs in small quantities for the proper functioning of its metabolism. Essential nutrients cannot be synthesized in the body, either at all or not in sufficient quantities, and therefore it must be obtained through the diet. And a word, first of all, before we get into this, I want to just have a little word about natural versus synthetic vitamins. You hear a lot about this, and there's a lot of advertising around natural versus synthetic. My feeling is don't bother. I think, the thing about natural vitamins, and I, as I mentioned, I worked in, I had my own vitamin shop for 15 years, is that natural vitamins are highly manufactured. I mean, you can't just take a vitamin out of the food in any simple way. So even if it comes from a natural source, they have to extract it from that source, and then they have to process it, and then they have to put it in, manufacture it into a tablet form. So basically, by the time you get a tablet of a natural vitamin, it's already been highly processed. And I don't think it's worth the cost. There's really no evidence that they're any better from a tablet of natural vitamin than the synthetic vitamins. Although there is an exception, which is vitamin E, and we'll talk about that later. So really, I don't think it's worth the extra expense to get a natural vitamin. And basically, the best way to get your natural vitamins is through your food. So let's talk about vitamin A. The recommended daily allowance of vitamin A for women is 2,300 units, for men is 3,000 units. And there's two kinds of vitamin A. There's a fat-soluble, which is known as retinol, and there's a water-soluble, which is known as beta-carotene. And the fat-soluble will be the one that would usually occur in animal products like meats and fish and that type of thing. Whereas the water-soluble is the one that usually occurs in plants, and that has the beta-carotene. And the body can use both. It actually converts them both into a usable form. And so it's really a good idea to get some from both sources if you can, but not necessary. Overdose of vitamin A can cause birth defects, osteoporosis, and liver damage. So you really want to be careful about vitamin A. I remember years ago, it was very popular when I was had my own vitamin shops, that people want to take high doses of vitamin A, as much as 10 to 50,000 units, 100,000 units of vitamin A a day. Just didn't make a lot of sense to me. And I always caution people that there are potential for toxicity with too much vitamin A.
Well, so Dave, so how many carrots is like the daily allotment for a woman? Like just on average, do you have any idea of like
Oh, I
a
don't know exactly. I suppose
unpeeled?
probably a lot of it depends on how much you know, where the carrots are growing and stuff like that. I don't know if I could, I don't have that information readily available, but you can find it. It
Mm-hmm.
is available. The thing is, there are a lot of sources, but first of all, let's talk a little bit about the vitamin A functions. We'll talk about sources in a minute. This is the area, this is the why vitamin A is probably useful to make sure you get enough of if you're worried about COVID virus. Because what vitamin A does is it improves antibody response and it enhances leukocyte function, which is leukocytes are the white blood cells that help to get rid of infecting agents like viruses and bacteria. So again, it's not like an anti-infective per se. It's not going to kill the virus or kill a bacteria, but what it does is it aids the body in handling that virus or bacteria. So it doesn't make sense to take really high doses of vitamin A, but just to make sure you have sufficient quantities. So other things that's important for is night vision, for bone growth, for reproduction, mucous membrane health. And here again, this is something that is related to the COVID virus, because your mucous membranes are what line your lungs, and the lungs are where the people are having the most problem with the COVID virus. It's also important in young people for proper dental configuration, and it can inhibit some tumors. So, you know, if you're dealing with cancer, you have to make sure you have enough vitamin A in your diet. So signs of a vitamin A deficiency include night blindness, increased colds and lowered immunity, bronchitis, bone softness and gum disease, increased risk of cancers, dry skin and hair, and wrinkled, bumpy skin. So food sources of vitamin A, other than cod liver oil, which you see being administered here. Some of you, may remember taking cod liver oil when you were a kid. I mean, it was common. Food sources are dairy products, eggs, meat and liver, fish and fish oil, yellow and orange fruits and veggies, and dark green leafy vegetables. So again, the amount of, how much is in a particular one, I don't know, it's hard to say. I don't really know. I know that there are tables where you can look that up and find out how much that is, but I don't have that information with me today. B vitamins are the next group of vitamins that are very important. And of course, the B vitamins are actually a whole complex of vitamins. That includes folic acid, vitamin B1, vitamin B2, vitamin B6, vitamin B12, niacin or niacinamide, which is sometimes called vitamin B3, pantothenic acid, which is sometimes called vitamin B5, and biotin. And you can see what's considered the recommended daily allowance is very low quantities. And as I mentioned earlier, the best source for these vitamins especially are foods. One thing to keep in mind too about vitamin B complex, if you take tablets or complexes in tablet or capsule form, and some people like to take really high doses. I mean, I know it, again, in my business way back when, vitamin B50 was a real common dosage where they'd have 50 milligrams or micrograms of every vitamin, every B vitamin in the complex. But I always told people to, once you take a B vitamin, one of the things about all B vitamins is that they're water soluble, which means they're easily eliminated from the body. So if you take a B complex tablet, almost invariably, no matter how much vitamin B is in there, the next time you urinate, you're going to see how dark yellow that your urine is. And you're peeing out all that B vitamins. So there really is no good rationale for taking high dose B vitamin supplements. But let's talk a little bit about what the importance of each of the vitamins is, B vitamins is. And here, these are the chemical structures of the vitamins, just to give you some idea what they may look like if you could see them under a microscope. So folic acid is needed to make, repair, and methylate DNA, which is important for genetic transmission. a cofactor in various reactions throughout the body, and is especially important in aiding rapid cell division and growth, such as infancy and pregnancy. So oftentimes, most doctors will prescribe folic acid, 1 milligram of folic acid to the pregnant women, because it's very important for rapid cell division that's going on when a fetus is developing. So vitamin B1 is also known as thiamine. And thiamine plays a central role in the release of energy from carbohydrates. It is involved in RNA and DNA production as well as nerve function. As you'll see throughout these, the B vitamins, one of their primary functions is in the nervous system, in the brain function and nervous system. And so they're very important for those, as well as for protein synthesis. So they're very involved in many, many processes throughout the body. So vitamin B3 is niacin, also known as niacinamide. So niacin plays an important role in energy transfer reactions and the metabolism of glucose and alcohol. Recently, niacin has become popularized for helping to lower cholesterol levels. And it can do that in high doses. As you saw, if you remember at the beginning, niacin is only necessary at a very low dosage, only a few milligrams a day, is actually what the body needs. But some people have found that taking high doses of niacin can lower blood cholesterol levels. However, there is a downside because high levels of niacin can also cause liver damage. So you have to be really careful about this because it isn't a situation. The other thing that happens with niacin is something called a niacin flush. And some people are very sensitive to this. If they take niacin, the straight niacin, because it's so water-soluble, it gets into your bloodstream, and the high levels cause a flushing reaction throughout your body where your face will turn red and your extremities will turn red because the blood is pooling, and it'll get really itchy and hot and uncomfortable. And that's called a niacin flush, which is not dangerous, but it's uncomfortable. One way to avoid that if you have a problem is to get the niacinamide, which is an amide is added to the niacin, and then it kind of makes it like a time release, so you don't get that rush of niacin into your bloodstream, and it releases. The body can break the niacin off from the amide molecule when it needs the niacin. So vitamin B2 is also known as riboflavin. And vitamin B2 is involved in the release of energy in the electron transport chain known as the citric acid cycle or the Krebs cycle. And this is really important in the way the body produces energy to function. Every cell has this Krebs cycle going on, and it releases energy so that the body can function basically every day. It's also important that the catabolism of fatty acids, which means the breakdown of fatty acids, is part of the process of using fatty acids, is that they're absorbed and they're utilized, and then they have to be broken down and eliminated in different ways if there's too much of them. So that's one of the things that riboflavin is important for. Okay. So pantothenic acid, also known as B5, is involved in the oxidation of fatty acids and carbohydrates. Coenzyme A, which can be synthesized from pantothenic acid by the body, is involved in the synthesis of amino acids, fatty acids, ketone bodies, cholesterol, phospholipids, steroid hormones, neurotransmitters, and antibodies. So it's a very important vitamin to get in small quantities. Recently, it's become popular to put pantothenic acid in topical creams to help with skin health. And it also has some sunscreen activity as well. So you'll often find pantothenate or pantothenic acid, usually has the pantothenate, the basic form, will be in like facial creams. Pyridoxine is the name for B6. And the active form is pyridoxal 5-phosphate, which serves as a cofactor in many enzyme reactions, mainly in amino acid metabolism, including biosynthesis of neurotransmitters. So amino acids, of course, are the building blocks of proteins. So vitamin B6 is very important in using in protein synthesis, as well as in different neurotransmitters. Again, the function of the B vitamins in the nervous system is very important. Now some people use vitamin B6 therapeutically in high doses for carpal tunnel syndrome. I've had in my own experience, I know that some people have gotten good results with taking doses of 200 to 300 milligrams in divided doses of vitamin B6 over the course of a day to deal with carpal tunnel syndrome with good results. So it's something to keep in mind if you ever have that.
And why is that? It's because does it bring?
I don't know if it really is known exactly why it happens. I certainly have never seen any explanation. It's just kind of something that has been shown to happen, and it doesn't work for everybody. So one of the most complex of the B vitamins is cyanocobalamin, or B12, which actually has a little cyanide molecule in there. You can see it. It's got the little purple molecule in there, right there. And that's actually cyanide. So vitamin B12 is involved in the cellular metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. That's in the cell. It's very important. It is essential in the production of red blood cells in the bone marrow. So you'll see this is really, along with iron, vitamin B12 is very important. And it's also important for the production of the nerve sheaths and proteins. So again, another reason why the B vitamins are important in the bloodstream. Now, vitamin B12 is an interesting vitamin from the standpoint of vegetarians and vegans. Almost all vitamin B12, I don't know of any plant sources of vitamin B12, let's put it that way. You have to get vitamin B12 from meat sources. So if you are a vegan or a vegetarian, it might be wise to supplement with a tablet of B12 every day. It's very important for many functions in the body. And the final B vitamin that we'll talk about today is biotin. And biotin plays a key role in the metabolism of lipids and proteins and carbohydrates. And it's a minor vitamin. You don't need a whole lot of it, and you will sometimes find it in a B complex supplement, but you also get a lot of it in food. Okay, so what are the symptoms of vitamin B deficiency? I'm not going to go into the specific ones for specific vitamin Bs, but the symptoms of deficiency depend on what type of vitamin B you lack. They can range from fatigue, confusion, depression, and other neurological disorders to anemia or a compromised immune system. Skin rashes can also occur. And as I've said a number of times already, the best source for the B vitamins are food. As you can see, there's food, they're ubiquitous. I mean, B vitamins occur in many, many foods. Grains and meats and veggies and seeds and all nuts and bananas, oatmeal. So you can't go wrong. I mean, again, a balanced diet is really the key here, and getting enough of these B vitamins should be easy if you have a good diet. So again, if you have any of the symptoms of deficiency, it means that you're not eating very well, and just taking a supplement is not going to necessarily resolve those problems. Vitamin C, going along alphabetically, the recommended daily allowance for women is 75 milligrams. For men is 90 milligrams. Smokers it's often recommended even by doctors to take an extra 35 milligrams of vitamin C because of its antioxidant activity. We'll talk a little bit about antioxidants in a minute, so I'll save that for then. But one of the problems with smokers, of course, is free radical formation, and we'll talk about that too. The other thing about vitamin C, again, is it's a water-soluble vitamin, much like the B vitamins, so that if you take high doses of vitamin C, and it's not uncommon for people to take 1,000 milligrams, 2,000 milligrams a day, and they think that's going to help them fight off colds and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I mean, vitamin C is so water soluble that as soon as the body has utilized what it can from a dose that you take, it starts eliminating it. And of course, an overdose, symptoms that you're taking too much include gas and bloating and diarrhea, but also burning with urination because it is an acid. So if you have lots of vitamin C in your urine, it could come off as a burning sensation when you urinate. So the functions of vitamin C, it's an antioxidant. It's needed for collagen formation, which is important for the skin, tendons, ligaments, and blood vessels. Collagen is a protein. It's required for amino acid synthesis. It's involved in adrenal hormone production. It aids in wound healing. It's necessary for utilization of iron. It protects vitamins E and A. Vitamin E and A can be broken down in the liver as they pass through, but vitamin C prevents that breakdown. So it's useful for having all those in your system at once. That's why, just taking an isolated vitamin or an isolated group of vitamins isn't necessarily the best idea, because I mean they all work together in different functions. The C and the E and the A and the B's, and they're all necessary. So, and you never know exactly how much of each one you're going to need. And the body does that for itself. And in the case of vitamins, water-soluble vitamins, it eliminates so much. So again, the idea here is that get what you need from your food that you eat. So deficiency symptoms for vitamin E, the classic one is scurvy, which is a general weakness and loss of appetite, bleeding gums, loose teeth, mouth ulcers, easy bruising, slow wound healing, tiny hemorrhages in the skin, anemia, and nosebleeds. This was scurvy was a real scourge, if you will, in the 16th, 17th century, when sailors would go out on long voyages, either to the New World or around the world or whatever, and they would get scurvy because they didn't have any vitamin C. And that's why the British finally discovered that there was something in limes that prevented scurvy. And so they always sent their sailors out with a lime ration. And that's why British sailors became known as limeys, because they would take their lime ration to prevent scurvy. And that was because, as we found out later, because of the high vitamin C levels in limes.
Did they just I wonder if they just took a pull off of the little, the fruit, if they just bit the fruit, or
right,
how
they just took the fruit. I imagine they kept the fruit and then they probably squeezed the juice out. I'm not sure. I think most of it's in the juice. I don't know how much would be in the rind.
In the pulp?
They could probably just ground it all up together and then take a small dose of that every day. So because you don't need much, as I pointed out at the beginning of vitamin C, you only need 45 to 90 milligrams a day, and that certainly is easy enough to get in a ration of limes. So other deficiency symptoms include poor resistance to the disease, joint tenderness and high blood pressure, and poor digestion. So food sources of vitamin C are abundant. Of course, the citrus fruits, rose hips and acerola cherries are real common sources for the so-called natural vitamins supplements that you find. But you also get in papaya, cantaloupe, strawberries, tomatoes, dark green leafy veggies, sauerkraut, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, parsley. A lot of different sources for vitamin C, all in fruits and vegetables, though. This won't find it in a meat diet. So let's talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about antioxidants, because of course, antioxidants is what vitamin C is, and we'll find out about vitamin E in a few minutes. But this is where the phrase comes: get some color in your diet. It's because almost invariably the same chemicals that are the antioxidants in plants, in flowers and fruits, almost always those chemicals are also the chemicals that give the plants, the flowers, and the fruits their color. So color is an indication that there's a lot of antioxidants in the plants. So antioxidants are compounds that inhibit oxidation, as it implies. Oxidation is a chemical reaction that can produce free radicals, thereby leading to chain reactions that may damage the cells of the body. Free radicals are charged particles in the body that are necessary for a lot of reactions, but if you get too many, they can be a problem. And one of the areas that it's been implicated in is the onset of cancers, for example. And another area is in respiratory problems. So you need antioxidants in your diet. And as you can see, there's lots of different types of antioxidants in carrots, garlic, lemon, tomatoes. Lycopene has become a popular supplement, to get lycopene, but all you have to do is eat tomatoes. And just think tomato sauce, you can get tomato sauce any time of the year. You don't have to have fresh tomatoes. In fact, tomato sauce probably has a higher concentration of lycopene than fresh tomatoes do. Recently, in the past decade, resveratrol has become real popular because they found out that wine has a good antioxidant for you. And this was a reason for people to drink wines because it's high in antioxidants like resveratrol. And it also occurs in apples, onions, so lots of different foods. I mean, all different kinds of antioxidants occur in all kinds of foods, nuts, fruits, vegetables. So that's why it's important to get some color into your diet.
And do you think that berries are it's always like berries are really touted to be higher in antioxidants?
Berries are a very, very good source because they're they're highly colored, right? Have a lot of color. They're really deep color. And so yeah, berries, just about, strawberries, all kinds of berries. You don't have to, and I tell people, you don't have to buy exotic, these exotic ones like acai berries have become very, very popular, and they're not grown here. They're very expensive as a supplement. There's really no reason that acai berries have no benefit that's better than any other berry that you can eat that are local. And there's no reason.
Elderberries are a new one.
Elderberries are good too. And elderberries have, talking about the COVID, elderberries have a long history of being used as a tonic during the winter to prevent colds and flus. And so there has been research done to show that they can inhibit viral activity to a certain extent. It's not going to work for everybody, but again, you can, elderberries grow pretty all over Wisconsin, and you can harvest them yourselves. There was some controversy about elderberries being dangerous, and there's no evidence that that's true. You want to make sure you get the black elderberries though, and not the red elderberries, because the red ones are not edible and have some toxicity issues. You want the black or the dark purple elderberries, the American elderberries, not the.
Okay.
So a free radical, let's talk a little bit about free radicals. They are an atom or a group of atoms with at least one unpaired electron. So another atom or molecule can bond to it. This combining can affect dramatic changes in the body and cause significant damage. But there are many free radicals that are needed for body functions, but it's the ones that are that are from extraneous, that come in from our environment that I'll show you in a minute, that are the problem. So antioxidants combine with and neutralize free radicals. And so that's why antioxidants are so important. So there are many sources of free radicals in our environment. If you're a smoker, dietary, such as rancid fats, excess carbohydrates, or inadequate antioxidants. Environmental toxins like pesticides, solvents, polyaromatic hydrocarbons, heavy metals, medications like acetaminophen, which is Tylenol, and cancer chemotherapeutic agents, ionizing radiation like ultraviolet and X-rays and radon, and air pollutants like carbon monoxide and nitrogen dioxide and ozone. All these things generate free radicals in our body, and can be cause of damage to as I mentioned, damage to the lungs, as well as cancer, initiating cancer. There's some evidence that they can initiate cancers. So really, you want to make sure you get plenty of antioxidants, and the best way to do that is to have a well-rounded, balanced diet with lots of fruits and vegetables. One other thing I would talk about with as far as antioxidants is something called ORAC, which if you see any advertising or promotion for vitamin C or antioxidants, you'll often see this term used. ORAC stands for oxygen radical absorbance capacity. It's a lab test that attempts to quantify the total antioxidant capacity of a food by placing a sample of the food in a test tube, along with certain molecules that generate free radical activity and certain other molecules that are vulnerable to oxidation. After a while, they measure how well the sample protected the vulnerable molecules from oxidation by the free radicals. The less free radical damage there is, the higher the antioxidant capacity of the test substance. There are actually a handful of different tests designed to measure total antioxidant capacity in this way, but the ORAC is probably the best known and most popular. The nice thing about this method is that it tries to measure the antioxidant activity of a food rather than the levels of specific nutrients such as vitamin C or E. However, the downside is that numerous health, food, and beverage companies and marketers have capitalized on the ORAC rating by promoting products claiming to be high in ORAC. As most of these ORAC values have not been independently validated or subjected to peer review for publication in scientific literature, they remain unconfirmed, are not scientifically credible, and may mislead consumers. So I just wanted to mention that. I certainly, again, I certainly don't believe in the ORAC thing so much. I think when they talk about substances that they're testing, it's usually whole foods anyway, so just eat the foods. And then there's one antioxidant that I'd like to just highlight, and that's lutein. It's one of my favorite ones to talk about because it comes from, among other places, dandelions. And dandelions are one of my favorite plants. It's the most important antioxidant for the eye. They've found that the highest levels of lutein in the human body are in the eye. And so oftentimes when you buy a lutein supplement, you get it with zeaxanthin, which is an isomer that occurs with lutein. An isomer is a chemically identical substance, but it has a different spatial configuration, which makes it a little bit different. And so lutein can become zeaxanthin, and zeaxanthin can become lutein, back and forth. So it's hard to get one without the other. And the yellow color in dandelions is lutein. So if you want to get a lot of lutein, you could take dandelion flowers, especially this time. Well, maybe a little too late now, but you can just pick those little florets out of the dandelion and add them to your food if you want to get more lutein. And the recommended daily intake is 6 to 20 milligrams daily. There are a lot of eye doctors, optometrists, and opticians who will recommend taking lutein, because one of the things that it's thought to be beneficial for is to prevent macular degeneration. It's not going to stop it. It's not going to if you have significant macular degeneration, it's not going to reverse it, but it could be beneficial in slowing it down.
What's that? Sorry, probably dumb. What's macular degeneration?
Macular degeneration is basically the breakdown of the cells in your eye, in the macula of the eye, which is the part on the surface of your eye where it starts to become cloudy, and it interferes with vision over time.
Got it.
So there are a lot of food sources of lutein: chicken, egg yolks, kale, collard greens, spinach, peppers, broccoli, green beans, kiwi fruit, honeydew melon, squash, and of course dandelions. So vitamin E is the next one. And vitamin E is a fat-soluble antioxidant. We talked about antioxidants, and most of the ones we were talking about, the C and the Bs and the different ones that are in the fruits and vegetables, are all water-soluble. So that means that they don't get into the fatty parts of our bodies where we need them as well. So it's nice to have a fat-soluble antioxidant like vitamin E to help protect the fat supplies in our body from going rancid or going bad, or you're breaking down into free radicals. So vitamin D is also an enzyme activity regulator. It boosts immune function, and it widens blood vessels and reduces clotting. Oh dear. Okay, the RDA recommended daily amount is for adults is about 23 units. For children, which is age dependent, from anywhere from 6 to 16 units. So you don't need a lot of vitamin E. And most people, when they're taking supplements, in my experience, are taking like 200 to 400 units of vitamin E a day. And there really is no good reason to take that much, I don't believe. Now, on the other hand, this is a vitamin that we need to be concerned about, whether it's natural or synthetic. For most vitamins, I don't think it really makes much difference ultimately. As I've been showing you, the vitamins, I've been showing you the chemical structure, and the chemical structure is that vitamin. So whether it's synthetic or natural, that's the way it looks, okay? But with vitamin E, there are two different isomers. I mentioned isomers when we were talking about lutein and zeaxanthin. They are basically mirror copies of each other. So the form that the body wants to use is called the D-alpha tocopherol, which is the natural form, and the D has to do with a D isomer. And when you synthesize or synthesize vitamin E, you get a mixture of the D and the L-alpha tocopherol. The L form is the form that is not recognized by the body. So if you take 400 units of vitamin D alpha tocopherol, which is the vitamin alpha tocopherol, which is the natural form, it's entirely usable. But if you take 400 units of the DL alpha tocopherol, you're only gonna be able to use half of that. So it's only about 200 units of vitamin E. So in this case, this is where the one exception to the rule where I say that, yeah, if you're going to go with vitamin E supplements, it's better to go with the natural than the synthetic form. So vitamin E deficiency symptoms are visual problems, muscular weakness, muscle pain, difficulty with coordination and walking, dry skin, increased risk of heart disease, diminished fertility due to sperm damage, and damage to brain cells due to free radical activity. One of the things about the brain is that it's the fattiest organ in our body, really. And so that means that there's two supplements that are very important for the brain. One of them is the omega-3 fats, because they're really important in the whole nervous system, but especially in the brain. And the other one is vitamin E, which helps to prevent free radical damage to the cells in the brain. And as I mentioned earlier, when I talked about my favorite supplement, which is cod liver oil. Cod liver oil has a source of not only the omega-3 fats, but also vitamin A, vitamin D, which are beneficial in terms of what we were talking about. Remember the COVID virus potentially, and vitamin E. You get enough vitamin E in a tablespoon dose of cod liver oil to meet your minimum daily requirement. So other food sources of vitamin E.
So wait, Dave,
Yeah.
My dad used to give us cod liver oil when we were little.
Yeah.
So but I was awful. It was so gross.
Well,
maybe now as an adult I could stomach it a little bit more, but how do you take it?
Okay,
just out of curiosity.
About cod liver oil. First of all, years ago when people had cod liver oil, they often didn't keep it refrigerated. It was kept in a kitchen cabinet or something like that. So as it ages, as it gets older, because of oxidation, and it starts to go rancid, and it gets worse and worse tasting. If you keep it refrigerated, it doesn't go rancid, and it'll taste better. The other thing is I buy flavored cod liver oil. You can I buy a lemon flavored cod liver oil. And it's made by Carlson's, if I may give a brand name, and I think it's really the best on the market. But there also you also can get I've seen cherry and mint flavored cod liver oils as well.
So does it still taste like fish, or does it taste like lemon fish?
No, if you keep it refrigerated and you take it, and if it's cold when you take it, you don't taste the fish, you taste the lemon.
Okay.
And I think the worst part about taking cod liver oil initially is the consistency of the oil and swallowing it. Everybody thinks they're going to gag on it or something, especially because they think it tastes bad. So if you get a cold cod liver oil and it's flavored, you'll have that oiliness, but it washes down very easily with water.
Okay.
I don't really think it's a problem at all anymore. I mean, as long as you keep it, even if you put, I've even used unflavored cod liver oil and kept it refrigerated, and it's fine. It had unflavored cod liver oil has a slight fishy taste, but not too bad at all. And it doesn't linger in your mouth if you wash it down with water. I always
Okay.
take it, with food. That helps too.
Janine asked if you get fish burps.
If you get what?
Fish burps. Like when you burp, does it take?
Oh, fish burp. No, not if you take it after with food, because again, oils are better absorbed with proteins. And so if you take it on an empty stomach, yeah, it might burp up. You might burp up on you. But if you take it with a meal, I've never had that problem.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you shared the lemon flavor, because all I remember, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love adding fish.
It was terrible.
I love adding fish sauce to food, but yeah, I remember that cod liver oil, and that was pretty intense.
Yeah, it is. It was, but just have to be. That's why most people take fish oil capsules, but the capsules are refined, and I mean the fish oil is refined. It doesn't have all the other benefits like the A and the D and the E and etc.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Sorry to cut you off. Thanks for clarifying.
Right. So food sources of vitamin E, the highest levels of vitamin E are in oils because remember it's fat soluble. So wheat germ oil, canola oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, almond oil, olive oil, all those are really good sources of vitamin E. So getting those in your diet is really important, especially olive oil. Olive oil is interesting. I think I like olive oil. It tastes the best, but it's interesting that olive oil is the only oil that we have marketed that comes from a fruit. All the other oils come from seeds and or nuts. And what that means is that in order to get the oil out of the seed, they have to put on a lot of pressure, which heats it up a little bit, and that causes it to go, that breaks it down, the oil down a little bit. The olive oil doesn't take much pressure to get the oil out of the olives, and so I think it's the most natural way to take oil, to use oil as often as much as you can. So other sources of vitamin E include sunflower seeds, almond, avocado, spinach, butternut squash, kiwi fruit, broccoli, trout, shrimp. So, most meats will have some vitamin E in, the fish especially, not so much the red meats. Vitamin D. Vitamin D is important for bone health, calcium utilization, immunity, heart health, prevention of cancer, especially in the colon and prostate, and mood and brain health. Now, I mentioned earlier that vitamin D is really important for your immunity. There's been a recent study was released by the British Medical Journal, and they did a meta-analysis of studies on vitamin D and viral infections. And the study was with 11,000 people, so it's a highly significant study. And they found that in people who had did not have a deficit of vitamin D in their diet, extra vitamin D reduced the chances of getting a viral infection by as much as 20%. In people who had a vitamin D deficit in their system, the benefit was as much as 70% reduction in the chance of getting a viral infection. So this study was not done on the COVID virus, but it was done on other viruses. But I think what it says is that vitamin D is not specific for a specific virus. What it is it enhances the body's ability to deal with the virus. So it's recommended that you get a minimum of 1,000 units of vitamin D a day, and to take it constantly throughout the year. In fact, let's go on a little bit more here. We'll talk about the doses in a minute. So vitamin D deficiency, you can see this is a bone as the levels of vitamin D decrease, you can see how porous it becomes. So osteoporosis is a real problem. Nearsightedness, loss of hearing, muscular problems, reduced thymus functioning, and lowered immune system function, which increases the risks of some cancers. So food sources of vitamin D include milk, butter, cheese, eggs, yolks, and fish oil. So there really isn't any, there aren't any good vegetable sources, plant sources of vitamin D. So the RDA, what's considered the recommended daily allowance is 400 units. But a common recommendation for dosing vitamin D is 1,000 to 2,000 units. And in the higher range, it's safe to take as much as 5,000 to 10,000 units. I myself personally take about 3,500 units of vitamin D a day, and I've been doing that for years. And I find, I mean, I've never had the flu. I can't say it's due to this, but there's probably other reasons, but I think it's very important. The other thing that's interesting about it is that, first of all, is that vitamin D is really does not fit the true definition of vitamin D, of a vitamin, I should say, because it can be produced in the skin of your body. And in fact, exposure to 15 minutes of sunshine 3 times weekly is enough to create to give you the RDA, which is 400 units of vitamin D. Now, that's interesting because as one of the studies that they looked at as far as its implications for viral protection was researchers realized that the flu season begins at the same time that the sun is at its lowest level and the days are shortened. So what that means is that as the sunlight goes down, the flu season increases. And they thought that was interesting because the natural amount of vitamin D that you would have in your body can decrease during the winter months, and then it'll increase during the summer when you get more sun exposure. But during the winter, your skin is covered up, you don't get as much sun exposure, there's more cloud cover. And so that's one of the reasons they started supplementing vitamin D in people who had problems with flu, and they found out that it really decreased the incidence of flu in those individuals that increased their vitamin D levels. The other thing about it is that they found as a side effect is that it improved the mood. You know, a lot of people get what they call a seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, because of lack of sunshine. And apparently a big part of that is because the body doesn't have enough vitamin D. So increasing the levels of vitamin D in the body actually has been shown to improve mood in people during the wintertime. And this effect starts as far south as northern Arizona, that you see it. So it's a northern climate. In the southern climates, you don't have this problem because you get, much more sunshine and the day throughout the day. So let's talk a little bit about minerals. Mineral is a chemical element required as an essential nutrient by the body to perform functions necessary for life. However, the 4 major structural elements in the human body by weight, oxygen, hydrogen, carbon, and nitrogen, are usually not included in lists of nutrient minerals. These 4 elements compose about 96% of the weight of the human body, and major minerals, like macrominerals, are also called macrominerals, and minor minerals, also called trace elements, compose the remainder. Nutrient minerals being elements cannot be synthesized biochemically by the body. Plants get minerals from the soil. Most of the minerals in a human diet come from eating plants and animals or from drinking water. So again, it's all about what you eat. So of course, calcium is the one that people are always most concerned about, perhaps. And it's needed for strong bones and teeth. Remember when you were a kid, your mother told you got to drink your milk, or the advertising, the dairy farmers want you to drink your milk for strong bones and teeth. Although, as it turns out, milk isn't not necessarily the best way to get it. And certainly there's a lot of problem for a lot of people. So there are many other food sources, as we'll see, for calcium. It's important for proper muscle contraction. It helps regulate heartbeat, necessary for nerve transmission. It influences neurotransmitter release. It activates certain enzyme systems. It's important for cell division, essential for blood coagulation, and it reduces homocysteine levels. Homocysteine is an indication of inflammation going on in your system, and it can lead to problems like with inflammatory diseases arthritis, but also for heart disease as well. So calcium is important for reducing that homocysteine. So calcium deficiency includes osteoporosis, tooth loss and fractures, weak, brittle nails, anxiety and nerve sensitivity, muscle twitching, periodontal disease, gingivitis, toxemia, heart palpitations, and heart disease. Now, the recommended daily allowance for calcium, I just did it for adults. Males are 11 to 24 for 1,200 milligrams. Females, 1,200 milligrams. Once you get older than 24, it's usually they cut it down to 800 milligrams. And for pregnant females, there's an increase because of the needs of the fetus. So an overdose can cause calcification of soft tissues, kidney stones, and abnormal calcification of long bones. So I think, again, a lot of people take a high dose of calcium for bone health, but there's really no evidence that taking more calcium is going to improve your bone health. Food sources of calcium include milk, of course, but green leafy veggies, yogurt, kefir, cheese, broccoli, cauliflower, legumes, nuts, seeds, citrus, figs, raisins, dried apricots, all kinds of dried fruit. So a lot of good other good sources other than dairy for calcium in our diet. Now, just one word about calcium supplements. There's really no need to pay for some of these really expensive supplements. One of the most expensive supplements that you get for is called hydroxyapatite, and they make claims for it being the best source of calcium. And calcium carbonate, which is the cheapest, is often kind of all these companies that make these heavy, these more expensive forms like calcium glycinate say, well, you don't absorb calcium, it can't be utilized by the body. But actually, that's not true. If you take a look at most tablets you find out how are like maybe 1,000 milligrams is calcium, or a dose is maybe 1,000 milligrams, maybe 2 tablets. But each form of calcium has varying amounts of calcium in it, because the carbonate molecule, the citrate molecule, the glycinate molecule all have a certain weight. So in a calcium carbonate tablet, in 1,000 milligrams, you actually have 400 milligrams of calcium. And only 30% of that is absorbed, but that's 119 milligrams. That's actually the most that you can get. Calcium glycinate, which is much more expensive than the calcium carbonate, actually you get 44% of it is absorbed. But in a 1,000 milligram dose, there's actually only 190 milligrams of calcium. So therefore, you only end up absorbing 84 milligrams. So the point is don't spend a lot of money for an expensive calcium supplement, because I don't believe there's any benefit. And the important thing to remember too, though, is that vitamin D is necessary for the absorption of calcium. So you have to make sure that you have enough vitamin D in your system in order to absorb calcium properly. Magnesium, the RDA is 350 to 400 milligrams a day. And an overdose may cause diarrhea. And so, if you're taking more magnesium than your body can use, if you start to get diarrhea. So magnesium functions, it's necessary for heart and brain function. It helps release effects of stress. It reduces spasm in blood vessels. It's an enzyme cofactor in protein and carbohydrate metabolism. It's needed for production of and function of DNA. It's used in the formation of ATP. Which is ATP is the molecule that creates energy. ATP is adenosine triphosphate, and magnesium facilitates the breakdown of ATP to ADP, which is adenosine diphosphate, releasing a molecule of phosphate, which is an energy source. It's important in urea synthesis, and it binds calcium to tooth enamel. So deficiency symptoms include fatigue and insomnia, rapid heartbeat, increased rate of heart attacks, irritability, personality changes, gastrointestinal disorders, muscle tremors, poor memory. And diabetics are at an increased risk of all these if they don't get enough magnesium in their diet. So good food sources include nuts and seeds, grains, rice, dried fruit, molasses, green leafy veggies, and legumes. Iron is another supplement, another mineral. It's found in every cell. It's assisted in the production of hemoglobin, which is what makes the red blood cells red, stored in the liver, spleen, and bone marrow. It's an enzyme cofactor, but it accumulates in the liver, pancreas, and heart, which can be problematic. Now, that's a picture of the heme molecule that iron is part of in the red blood cells. So the minimum daily requirement for women 19 to 50 is 18 milligrams. For women over 50 is 8. Actually, it's over 50. It's after menopause when their needs go down. Pregnant women need about 27 milligrams of iron a day. Men only need 8 milligrams. And men should avoid taking supplements without testing because iron can accumulate in the body and cause toxicity. And women need more because they menstruate. They lose a lot of iron when they menstruate. So signs of iron deficiency include fatigue, dizziness and lightheadedness, pallor, hair loss, twitches, irritability, weakness. Pica, which is an interesting psychological phenomenon, is characterized by an appetite for non-nutritive substances such as ice, hair, paper, drywall, metal, stones, soil, glass, feces, and chalk. So it indicates if somebody is interested in eating those things, it indicates they need some iron. It also can cause brittle or grooved nails, which is a symptom of that. And you can see that on these pictures there. A painful tongue, impaired immune function, and ultimately severe anemia because of its importance in formation of red blood cells. So an overdose of iron can cause cirrhosis of the liver, fibrosis of other tissues, bronze color to the skin, diabetes due to pancreatic disease, joint problems, and cardiac insufficiency. And men and women and small children are especially at risk because the body does not eliminate excess iron, which is the reason why you shouldn't take supplements, and small children probably should not take iron supplementations, which in my mind calls into question the advisability of feeding children breakfast cereals, which are high in iron, as well as some breads that they make, which they add iron supplements to. Doesn't make sense for small children to be eating those because they can develop iron toxicity. So forms of iron this is interesting because a lot of times doctors will recommend their pregnant women that they should take an iron supplement, and they say, well, either take ferrous sulfate or ferrous gluconate. They don't tell them which they should take, but there is a difference. Both of them are 325 milligram tablets, but the ferrous sulfate is a smaller molecule than gluconate. So there's actually 65 milligrams of iron in ferrous sulfate and only 35 milligrams in ferrous gluconate. There's also an iron bisglycinate, which is a chelated form, and which has 25 milligrams of iron. Now, the problem with iron in the system is that it could cause constipation in the body. And the reason that happens is because it becomes ionized. And in fact, iron in the stomach can actually have a double charge on it, which makes it even more likely to cause constipation. And which is why a lot of women especially have problem with constipation when they're taking iron while they're pregnant. And one way to try to avoid that is with the bisglycinate, because the chelated form is absorbed without becoming ionized, and therefore you get your iron that way. But but another way to reduce the problem is to take it with yellow dock. Yellow dock herb actually improves iron absorption and reduces constipation because it actually has a slight laxative effect. So, and if you ever looked at processed foods, most processed foods add iron. It seems to have become very popular, and there really is no good reason for it. And maybe it's leading to iron overload in a lot of people. So there are plenty of food sources of iron. Salmon and kelp, all kinds of meat, the dark green leafy vegetables, eggs, whole grains, dried peas and beans, molasses. So you don't really need to, again, the idea here is if you have a well-balanced diet, you probably don't need to supplement iron. So vitamin C, hydrochloric acid, and eating meat and cooking in iron skillet increases absorption of iron. And antacids and low stomach acid, HCl, of course, being acid, hydrochloric acid that's in your stomach acid. Laxatives, antacids, low stomach acid, laxatives, soy, calcium supplements, caffeine, and tea reduces absorption. So the best time to take iron supplement, if you are taking it, is with your food, but you're better off using your food as your iron supplement if you can. Potassium is another mineral that you need every day. Potassium ions are vital for the function of living cells. It's important for the transfer of potassium ions across nerve cell membranes, is necessary for the normal nerve transmission. And potassium deficiency and excess can each result in numerous signs and symptoms, including an abnormal heart rhythm and various electrocardiographic abnormalities. So many doctors will prescribe potassium supplements to their heart patients and people who have problems with irregular heartbeat, because it's important to get enough of it on a daily basis. But there are lots of sources. Potassium is present in all fruits, vegetables, meat, and fish. Foods with high potassium concentrations include yam, parsley, dried apricots, milk, chocolate, nuts, potatoes, salmon. The list goes on. You can see lots of sources of potassium. So finally, I just want to mention briefly trace minerals that oftentimes you'll see you only need it in small quantities, and you'll see in supplements, but you really don't. These are all pretty widely available in the food that we eat. The interesting one here is zinc, and this relates to the COVID virus. I don't know if you remember a few weeks ago when Trump was talking about how he was taking that hydroxychloroquine, and he also mentioned that he was taking zinc as a preventative for the COVID virus. Well, taking zinc as a supplement and swallowing the tablet into the stomach is probably going to do absolutely no good for you for the COVID virus, because it gets into your system and it gets diluted. However, I think it may be useful to get a zinc lozenge that you can dissolve in your mouth, because the zinc, which will have that astringent effect in your mouth where you can really feel the astringency of it, also inactivates viruses. So if you're going into an area, a place where you think you might be coming in contact with a virus, if you take a zinc lozenge ahead of time, you'll feel it in your mouth. In fact, actually, I can actually feel it getting up into my sinuses, and it may prevent you from contracting the virus if you do come in contact with it. So in that sense, zinc may be useful as a lozenge, but not as a supplement you take orally. So that's about all I have to say on this whole subject here. Any questions?
So with the zinc lozenge, do you have to have it in your mouth while you're coming into contact, or do you?
No, if you suck it, like if you're going through like to a bar or a restaurant, and you dissolve a zinc lozenge in your mouth, it'll stay in there. You can feel it in there. I mean, part of the problem, unfortunately, with the zinc lozenges, it also seems to affect your taste buds, so that the food tastes differently. So that could be problematic. But it does linger for probably, I would say, about an hour or so. And so that if you're going to be in a place for a long time, like if you're going to a concert or something like that, or a place where there's a large group of people and you're not going to be eating, I think it might be beneficial. I don't know that there's any research as far as COVID goes, but I know that it does inactivate viruses when it comes in direct contact with the virus.
Interesting. Well, I learned a lot with I'm ordering some fish oil today for sure. Yeah, and now that I know that it's lemon.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, Janine?
Yeah. Any recommended vitamin books, like the Vitamin Bible?
Oh, I don't. I don't have one myself that I can tell you that is really really good. You're thinking about for the library, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to look into that. I could look into that and let you know if I think there's so much information on the internet that you could, that's good.
Yeah, and it's updated so
Yeah, it's
so
updated,
often.
and
Yeah.
too many of the books, the vitamin books that you get there are by these health gurus, people who are trying to promote a certain approach to supplementation. And so I don't know scientifically, and I'm sure, I know that there are pharmaceutical type books that are
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
technical. So I don't know that there's one specifically that I would recommend.
How about a magazine that do you subscribe to any herbal
No.
or health magazines you recommend?
No, I don't. I don't. And again, it depends on, some of these magazines, they're promoting vitamins or they're advertising vitamins, and they have articles that are written by people that promote vitamins. I just don't. It's a question.
Yeah, that's
I should
fair.
really look into that myself and have that information available, but I don't.
And then there was a question, can you repeat again which vitamin helps with psoriasis?
With psoriasis,
Mm-hmm.
that was probably vitamin E, and then also the fish oil, again, the omega-3 fats. The fat, psoriasis is a problem with dry skin, and one of the things with psoriasis and eczema and those types of things is that I think it's more of a liver problem. It represents a liver problem, whereas not so much that the liver problem is causing psoriasis. What happens is that if your liver is overburdened and is fairly toxic, or is not detoxing things very readily, or you have too many toxins in your system, an alternative means of elimination is through the skin. And when those toxins are eliminated through the skin, it causes rashes and skin problems and stuff like that. So vitamin E would be good for that. Also, make sure you have enough vitamin E, and also the fish oils, and vitamin D as well. That's where the fish oil, A is probably good for that. So that's where, again, I think it comes down to the fish oil for that particular situation. And then, interestingly enough, probiotics also can be beneficial for that, especially in kids. So that would be like yogurt and kefir and sauerkraut, all those foods that are high in those lactobacillus, that type of thing. The fermented foods are good for the skin as well, because they're also good for the liver.
Yeah, thank you, David. And then there's a comment on Facebook that says, very interesting, thank you.
Okay, good. Well, I was happy to do it.
Well, thank you so much. This was so great. And Carlson, I know you're, saying a brand, but Carlson's fish oil lemon, that's what you usually use?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome.
Well, thank you for Make Harbor Library.
All right, thank you.
And Michael says that was amazing. Thank you, David.
All right.
Where can people find you if they need more information? At Lynn's Pottery, or? Yeah,
well, you can actually, I'll give them my email address is herbtv62@gmail.com. They can contact me there if they want to.
Great. And then this will be available on the library's website and the Crest Pavilion's website. So.
Oh, good. All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, David.
Yeah.
I appreciate this.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.